glorious morning, sorrows will cease. Some glorious morning, all will be peace. Yes, it will.
My name is Cleo Bussey, and I have 33 in my family, considering all my grandchildren and great-grands and daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws. Feel that I'm very blessed and thankful. I think they're all wonderful. I was 17 years old when my first son was born, and he is now 74, and his mother is 92.
When were you born?
Oh, I was born in 1920.
You are my flower that's blooming in the mountain for me. You are my flower that's blooming there for me.
I was born in 1920, and I'm 92, and I'm healthy. That's the best part about it, and I feel blessed and thankful.
When you grew up in the 1920s, was it a hard time for everyone?
We lived through the 29s when there was a depression and everything, but I don't think that it really bothered us that much. I was a child, and my mother, she had 8, and she probably felt it more than I did, because you know how children are. My father died when I was 6, and my mama was left with 6 children. 2 of them was older, grown up. I had an older brother that was 19 that died 1 year after my father did. So that was something that for a child to have to go through.
I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely, away from heaven and home?
But we all did, and we all loved each other, and they were all fine people, the ones that's here. And my mother's in heaven, and I don't have any relatives. My mama had 8 children, and I am the only one living, and I am 92.
Times are kind of rough, but you don't know it.
Mm-hmm. No, you don't notice it, because they fix us plenty to eat. They just make us eat more out of the garden, and they raise their own meat, and they butcher their own hogs, and they have their own cows for milk and everything. You have to work a little harder helping with all that.
I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the song of God discloses.
Did you eat from the garden a lot?
Oh, yes, every day we had to have vegetables and cornbread every day, and we had meat, not every day. They would have meat to cook with, which they had to have, for boiling the vegetables and things, but not that much just for us to eat every day. We had eggs all the time and bacon. Back in that day, everybody wore a hat, and he's sitting there picnic with a hat on.
man right here is a welder.
Oh, and here, a welder, yes. He's working, doing welding. My father did a lot of that. He had a workshop in Trenton. The largest, they said, that was there between Columbia and South Carolina. A big planer that dressed all the lumber there for all the houses in the Trenton. And all the fancy work, he had a machine that made all of that you see if you go to Trenton, South Carolina, and see the old homes.
That he gave to me within my heart is room, and he walks with me and he talks with me. And he tells me I am his own.
This is 1942 right here. So that would have been right in the middle of the Second World War.
But they didn't have all of this thing that he's wearing to do that welding. And my daddy had a man work for him. He heated with what they called a forge. That was the thing where they kept it burning and they'd put the iron in there and it would get soft and then they'd shape it up and make horseshoes to put on the horses. Because back then we had horse and buggy a lot.
Car that takes you anywhere you want to go. The Model T. Strong, sturdy, with a will of its own.
We had one of the first cars in Trenton. I don't know whether you would call it a Model A, a Model T, but it was the oldest.
There were a lot of welders back then.
A lot of welding. People would bring it from far and near to get my daddy to fix it for them at the shop. My daddy worked on everything. Very brilliant man, one of the smartest. Had the first car, and anyone that got a car, my daddy would be the only ones that would know how to fix it. Then they had to also get out with a crank to start it up. And sometimes it would, say, kick you. That crank would fly back and knock you if you didn't be careful because you're stooping over there starting it up with the crank. That's the car my daddy had. When it came to Augusta, when Augusta was flooded with water that destroyed the city, and then it came all up the hillside in North Augusta. But it didn't come that far over in North Augusta because it had to go uphill when they had the flood. It was a terrible time, and I remember my daddy had a friend that had a pottery where he made flower pots and everything, and his was kind of down at the bottom by the water because he was down there where he could get this red clay for his pottery, and it washed his flower pots all out into the river, and they were floating around everywhere. And I lived in Trenton, South Carolina, and we had to drive about 20 miles in this car to get there, and it would take several hours to go from Trenton that distance. They had these things you could put if it's going to start to rain or something, plastic shields that you could put on the window side to keep the rain from coming in on you in the car. But I remember my daddy, he chewed tobacco. And my brother and I, we'd be riding in the back seat, and this, whenever, we didn't have when it was open up, and he would, if he started to empty that tobacco or something out, we would get in the floorboard so it wouldn't fly back on us. I don't remember anybody smoking cigarettes. I just remember that the only men I knew would had to buy a little block of tobacco and take a bite off of it. My little brother and I, we'd be so excited when the train was coming through Trenton, till we'd always, if we was at our house, we would run down to a block from our house, or maybe a little further. We'd run down to watch the people go by in the train. A lot of times they would wave at us, and sometimes they would throw something out for us, like candy.
I'm looking at a sign. It says oranges, 1 cent, grapefruit, 5 cents.
Oh, yes, that's right. If you had a few pennies, if I got 2 pennies, I could go get me a piece of candy.
Yeah.
And my mom, we were lucky to have 2 pennies.
Right.
That's right, because at that time, and I can even remember even after I got married, and my husband worked for $9 a week. And we had a little 2-room apartment, and I think they charged us about $12 a month for it, living there in Augusta. But everything was so cheap, you could go to the grocery store and you could get all the groceries you could carry for $3. Like sometimes they would have a orange crate there or something, and you'd want to use it, you could put your groceries in it and bring them home.
Do you want to help yourself and your fellow Americans? Would you like to earn a living, be able to support your family, and help rebuild your country? How does building roads, bridges, buildings, parks, and airports sound to you?
And back then, President Roosevelt was in office, and he was going to teach everybody, wanted everybody to learn a trade. So he provided jobs for them. They didn't pay much or nothing, work in the daytime, but at nighttime, he had a school they could go to and study for anything that they wanted to be. My husband was an electrician, but he learned that from President Roosevelt's school, going to school at night after he'd been digging ditches during the day.
How sweet to hold.
That looks like Sabrina, David.
Oh, yeah, that's David and Sabrina. Oh, yeah, that's me back over there, And that's his little girl, David's little girl, is that right? And who is this other little child? It's one of ours, I'm sure. That little girl of David's, he's just got one daughter, so this other one must be Amber. I would think so, because all 3 of those children had a baby the same year, those 3 brothers. Within 5 weeks, 3 brothers had a baby in the family, so we had to go to the hospital for 3 babies that was born within 5 weeks for about 3 brothers, my grandsons, Ricky, David, and Scott.
Do you think Ricky, David, Scott, and the families planned all that?
No.
No?
No, there was no way. Yeah. And those babies were born that close to each other.
Because he lived.
I say 5 weeks, like maybe one would be born 1 week and one another week and another week, but within the 5, the 3 babies was there. And Faith's got a picture of them all in her house. They had swings hanging up for all 3 of them in that log house. Cleo don't look like herself in that, does she? In that picture. That's because that's right, nice looking lady. Looked like kind of red looking hair. I think my hair was kind of shiny. It was more brown. But the sun was on it, I think, in that picture.
And life is worth a living just because he lived.
How do you feel, Granny?
I feel good.
Who do you feel like?
Who do I feel like?
Yes, ma'am.
James Brown.
Kind of homesick for that country to which I'd never been before. No sad goodbyes will there be spoken, for time won't matter anymore. Beulah land I'm longing for just across the river to where my pain is gonna end inside. There's just a few more days to live, then I must